You want to buy the crypto dip? Well, this is how you buy the crypto dip. Doesn't feel too good, does it now? This is how it feels. It's painful. We're down upwards of 20, 25% in several coins. I got a couple of cryptos here that are down over 30%. Solana is, Polygon, Shiba Inu. But this is how you extinguish all remnants of bearish sentiment. This is often how bottoms feel. And it's not just the cryptos going through this. We have the same kind of action in the equities as well, in the stocks, the Dow, the NASDAQ was down 3% in a day. The S&P made a new lower low today, although we are seeing a bit of a bounce in the after hours. So that could be it. That is the primary count. We may touch on that again. But today, we had a lot of really quick, swift action. So again, I keep using the Bitcoin Cash chart as it has the most clean structure and it's very easy to follow. And we had a nearly complete corrective action. So nearly complete corrective action in the form of a C wave impulse. We had a 1-2, a nice steady meltdown in our wave 3 that concluded with a spike on about May 9th or so. So that was about 2 days ago. We bottomed at about 211. And then we were expecting a fourth wave bounce. If you've been following my committee posts, I've been highlighting in several coins how we had a bit of a fourth wave bounce while our support would have been between 254 and 277. You don't always expect a fourth wave to retrace the whole way. Those are purely supports. You don't necessarily have to touch those. And we saw the same thing in a lot of other coins like Ethereum and Bitcoin and Stellar Lumens. A lot of them, we didn't see too much of a bounce, but it was more than sufficient enough to be counted as a fourth wave. So that's how I'm counting it. And we've had the flush down today. We were actually, I think, open in the green earlier in the day, and then we absolutely crashed, including with the equity space. So while on this linear chart, it looks like we hit the 1.6 minute extension and we may or may not be done yet, may dip a little bit further down, but this is how corrective waves are. They're very short-lived. They happen very quickly, and you don't want to get caught in the downward momentum because it shifts very quickly. You don't want to get caught with your pants down and in denial when this does turn around. So I'm going to actually go over the big picture first, relatively quickly for all the coins, just to give you guys a status update. So a lot has happened, but again, nothing that should be too surprising if you've been following my channel. We were expecting a lower low because we hadn't hit our ideal retracement box in most of our coins. This is Bitcoin, not Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin specifically, the OG crypto, and we did get into our purple box. I put out instructions on how to hedge and unhedge using Beto puts. I attempted to hedge again yesterday. I got out of it at a break even. Could have held through, but at this point, I don't think there's much reason to hedge for much more downside. I'm ready to buy the dip here, going long. So we hit a low of about, what was it, 29.0, something like 29,000. I'm going to zoom up on the small picture chart just to give us an idea of what our low has been so far, about 28,951. That's where Bitcoin has fallen. Somewhat of a convincing, not somewhat, it's a pretty convincing low. It looks like we got our 3, our 4, and our 5 done here for the C wave. And we were maintaining a bit of a MACD divergence. So if this thing consolidates a little bit, starts reversing, or has a small consolidation, supports a little bit lower, it would still hold. So expect this to turn around relatively soon. Ethereum actually made up all of its lost ground. We're mentioning how Ethereum had a lot of cushion, and it fell all the way down today. When we look at our boxes, while we didn't quite make it into the box, this is actually more than sufficient to complete what could be considered a C wave. Ideally, we would have gone about as low as 1700, 1719. So look out for that. We may see some more of that going down as we go. Our low, again, officially that we hit was about 2082. And here too, just like with the Bitcoin Cash chart, we're a little bit short. So we hit our third wave target just fine. Had a bit of a fourth wave bounce. I'm going to get rid of these markings. So sufficient fourth wave bounce. And while we've had a spike, would have been nice to see this dip in the 1900s range. We're going to see if it gets there or not over the next few hours. Bitcoin Cash big picture chart. We are just about grazing the top of our ideal retracement box. As I mentioned, we on the small chart, I think it was 178 ideal retracement target. So we're a few dollars short of getting into that box. But here you see a very clean MACD divergence here where you see this going up while we've had continued downside action. So that's a good sign. It's just coiling the spring for that violent reversal. I'm going to go to Ethereum Classic here. We didn't quite make it in this box, and I did mention I'm not completely convinced that we will, just because of the shape of the structure. It has much more of a diagonal look to the C wave. So again, a 1, 2, 3, maybe a 4 and a 5. I got to reposition these numbers to make more sense of this. So this is what we're looking at, and diagonals naturally don't project as low as do impulsive waves, just because it just shows that there's less bearish sentiment overall. Regardless, it was a pretty good smackdown, and as we've been seeing, Ethereum Classic has been our leading indicator of sentiment. It shifts the quickest and it goes off parabolically. So while we had quite a blow off rally all the way up to $52, we're down to about $18, and I would fully expect this one to turn around first once we do have a bottom mark. So keep your eyes again on this ETC Ethereum Classic. It's been moving quicker than pretty much anything else. Moving on to Litecoin, right in the box, exactly as we would have liked to have seen. Pretty much an ideal target. The 1-to-1 for the A to the C wave would have been about $76, so we went a little bit below that, but looks like a healthy pullback. On the short-term chart on Litecoin, I'm just going to see what the action looks like here. Same story as Bitcoin Cash and Ethereum. We didn't quite go as low as we may have wanted to see on the linear chart, but again, the linear chart and logarithmic log chart do count a bit differently. Moving over to Dash, one of my other main indicators, sentiment. My support was about $61. That is the 1-to-1 ratio of the A to the C wave, and we just broke it. We're about at $54. I'm going to zoom up on Dash up close. So when we look at this thing, absolutely destroyed, but not in a bad way necessarily. So when I readjust this thing, we're a little bit short on our third wave, got our fourth wave bounce up there. So this is honestly, this is also probably best classified as an ending diagonal situation here. So we stayed within the trend channel up until that spike, and that is what you see in a textbook diagonal kind of pattern. We have our throw over. That's what we like to see. The throw over is when you break outside the channel for your final fifth wave, either down or up if it's an ending diagonal the other way. So if this is what we think it is, we should see a pretty furious reversal relatively soon, especially because Dash has already fallen well through its ideal retracement point. So look for that to change pretty soon. Moving on to Chainlink, all the way into the box. I can't remember exactly what my target was to the downside on this. I believe it was $10, and we've broken well below that. On the log chart, at least it was $10 here. It could go as low as the $5 to $6 range. And well, where we are closing in, we hit about $665, something like that. That's what I'm looking at. Here too, we have a pretty dang solid MACD divergence. So more signs that this is on its way. Well, it's getting near a terminal point. I'm actually going to draw the trend channel line on this one as well, just to show that here too has a bit of a diagonal-like quality to it, in which we're having a throw over and a reversal may be imminent. So I'm going to draw the other top half of that trend channel line as well. So we're seeing something like this. Usually it's a very good indicator once we punch back through the top of the trend channel line that we're absolutely done. So if we see a small first wave pop up, expected to get through there first. Not sure exactly how high it'll go. Typically see some symmetry between the previous high in our fourth wave, whatever this bounce was, and the first wave. Looking at the same thing in the stock market. Moving on to Stellar Lumens, getting very close to that box. I'm satisfied, if you are, that we're done with this one. We do have our 61.8% retrace of the larger structure at about, it was a 9.7 cents. So that'll be just inside the box. We're going to see if we get down there or not. Looks pretty clean so far. I'm actually going to zoom up on this one just out of curiosity to see if we hit our targets. And this one came pretty dang close, eye-wateringly close to our 1.764 extension, which is typically where you expect a standard fifth wave to end up, either there or the 2.0 extension. So that is sufficient. It's also reflected in the in the double-digit loss we took. Obviously, a couple of these other coins I looked at have dropped even more, but relatively convincing expulsion of selling pressure. And finally, EOS. This is the one that may have kept you up all night if you have a lot in EOS. And we have that black hole at 128. Now, depending on how you count it, the support may have actually been a little bit higher. To my eyes, it looks like more or less a double bottom. We could squirt lower. I would really prefer we not squirt any lower than this. Don't want to see us pull back anymore. Still have a good divergence in place for the MACD. But as we have talked about before, if this is a first wave, second wave cannot get back down below the origin point of our rally structure. That is the number one rule in Elliott wave theory. When we look up closer, I mean, I guess you could call this a diagonal. I would hope it's done. Again, none of the other coins are in this kind of a precarious position. So we're going to see what happens with that one over the next few days. So as I mentioned, the stock market is also showing similar, the look of completeness. Again, no guarantee, but we've stretched about as low as we could want to stretch. Again, this is in the SP 500 mini futures that that trade overnight. And we may have the makings of an impulsive rally. If I zoom up a little bit more closely, that could convincingly be a 5-wave impulse up. So we're going to see this thing develop. If this is truly the end of the correction, we should see a rapid reversal and a gap up in the morning because we are stretched big time. Our VIX is up, it's up there. It didn't go as quite as high as it did yesterday. Now zooming back up in the absolute close-up view for Ethereum, we're not seeing anything like that yet. We're actually still descending. So, and I've mentioned this before, while our stock market and conventional stocks, things like that, those don't trade overnight. Cryptos do. They trade around the clock. So while we had our flush down in the equities markets during the trading day, I know the futures do trade overnight, but the volume's not as high. We could totally see our cryptos have a bit of a catch up overnight. So we may see a low overnight into the early morning hours. So if you're looking to buy there's a couple of ways you could go about it. I'm going to go back to a slightly bigger picture chart here. So I'm going to go to Bitcoin Cash again, because again, cleaner pattern to look at. I already started buying some tranches. As you guys know, I never did sell the second half of my cryptos. I sold half of them about 2.5 weeks ago. I started buying earlier today. A couple of coins I bought, I think it was Ethereum Classic, Bitcoin Cash, Doge, and maybe one other one. I'm looking to buy more as the hours pass by. Right now, as I mentioned, there's no confirmation we're done yet. We're still descending at the moment. So if I start seeing more of an impulsive pattern, a 5-wave rally, that would be an initial indicator that we are done with our pullback. So again, not a bad time to buy a tranche. If you haven't bought anything yet and you're looking to buy the dip, might as well buy now. Again, there's very little downside potential compared to the upside benefit here. I also put in a community post earlier today, if you're looking to dollar cost average DCA, perhaps you shut it down the past few months, maybe you raise some cash. This is a fantastic time to start your DCA again. I would actually say that it's probably better to dial up the frequency, maybe the amount you're putting in initially. You could taper it back over the next few days because, again, you can't ever really catch the bottom perfectly, especially in cryptos because they trade around the clock continuously. Sometimes you can catch a stock market bottom right at the end of the day or something like that. So again, don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough because, as I mentioned, when we look at the big picture chart, there is a lot of overhead room here. Again, our overall big picture structure is nowhere near being jeopardized. Nothing is suggesting that we're breaking support. Again, most of these cryptos are in their 4th wave, so none of those have broken support. We have other coins like, I think, Stellar Lumens or Dash. They're in the 2nd wave. There isn't really any official retracement point as long as you stay above the point of origin. So that's a good way to do it. Other thing I always mention is that the other sign would be, again, 5 waves up. So if we have a bigger 5-wave structure, preferably into that range, wherever our highs were for the coins around, was it April 13th or so. But you're probably going to see a first wave go about as high as the 4th wave did. So basically look for the highs from May 11th to be struck again once we have our initial 5-wave impulse up. So this first wave here should be an impulsive 5-wave form, and then we should have a bigger impulse that gets us back to the highs we saw probably in early April. That would be my estimate. We're going to have a better estimate as the days go by. We get a little bit more structure, and of course, once that pulls back in a 2nd wave, we're going to be in quite a tear after that. A lot of catching up to do. The bull market will start in earnest. Final thing I would like to touch on is we have looked at the coins. There is also the crypto mining, blockchain, stocks, things like that. I'm specifically focusing on Marathon Digital Holdings. I will have videos on this because there may be some lucrative options plays, but even if you're not going leverage, there may be 10, 15x return potential on some of these. I'm actually going to calculate that out here just to show what kind of potential we do have. Right now, we did break a little bit lower than ideal, but if our top is in this box somewhere, let's estimate about, was that 194, something like that. That could be a 17, 18, 19. Actually, that's a 20x return from where we are by the end of this rally. So that is pretty freaking good. If you're trying to buy just stocks, you don't want to dabble in options. That's actually eye-wateringly good. So definitely going to have some content on this. But the reason I bring this up is that it more or less mimics Bitcoin's rally structure, and it looks a lot like what we've seen in even other asset classes. I think small caps had a similar look to it, where we topped about a year ago, and we haven't really made much progress since. So same kind of thing there. But here too, we have a support just below at about 998, or is that 834? 834. So as long as we respect that red line below, I would not expect us to have too much more downside. And you can see the MACD here curling back up. Just again, another sign that we're very close to the bottom. Now, if some of these supports break, things could change. When the data changes, you must change your plan. You must change what you expect. So I'll have plenty of warnings if anything like that happens, but get buying if you're looking to buy. Otherwise, wait for a more confirmed setup with the 5 up, 3 down, that whole thing. So until next time, thank you for watching.